Hey, how's it going? So today we're going to show you how to put together your beams when we ship them for the Modern Slants. So first off, let's take a look at all our parts. You need to understand there's two different types of beams. Well, actually three, but two different styles of the way they're put together. Our truss beams are going to be joined together with glue to make a nice solid foundation so it can hold weight in the middle. And then our gable beams are actually going to rely on the strength of the gable itself, so we don't need to worry about that seam as much. So these are cut a little differently. So we're going to show you how to do both. Here's some parts you're going to make sure you have available to you. You want to make sure you have a tape measure. You'll want to get out your 2.5-inch torque head screws. These are a T20 tip. You also want to get out your 5-inch T25 screws. This is a little bit larger head. You'll get some wood glue sent out. This is a Type-On 3. This is a waterproof glue. It's okay to get wet, not going to cause a problem. This is one of the blocks that we'll use. We'll get to that and show you what that looks like. But just so you pull it out, it has that little angle in it. You're going to need a pre-drill with an drill with an 1/8-inch pre-drill bit, and your impact or a drill for screwing in with your T20 and the T25. Also, good idea to have a clamp, and I really do recommend having a buddy to help you with this. So I typically think this is a 2-person gig. These will come to you pre-built. You'll see them. We're just going to do one right now, and we'll do a separate video here in a second to show you how it is. But we've pre-set up everywhere you have to put everything, so it makes life a lot easier for you at home. All right, next video is going to be how we put the truss together. Thanks. All right, so now we're going to do our gable beams. They're a little different because they're going to sit on our actual gables. So we've mocked this up. They're not actually attached, but this is what it looks like, the gable. This one I'm going to go ahead and assemble this part of it for you because you can see it, because it goes a little different. 16 inches, this is exactly the same as before. Okay, on all your gable stops, we're going to go to 16. Right there, boom, and that's where we want it. Okay, and then we're going to put this guy on. And this is different because we can set this up on the gable and stage it. You don't actually have to pre-attach this beforehand. So this is only half of the beam, but what we'll do now is we're going to put this up here and go on. And this stopper, what it does is it makes sure that your distance is the same on all of them. See, it just stops right on the gable. So if I put it on there and I slide it down, boom, it catches. Now if you come down here, you'll see we have a 45-degree angle. And I can't actually do all this right now because we're not elevated. It's not going to sit right. But you can get that first piece on, bring your second piece in. Now again, we do want to put some glue on here. It's a little less important on this one than it was on the other one. But a little bit of glue in here. We're going to bring that seam up together. Now one of the things I want to show you before you screw it down, take a look over here. I've actually intentionally left this out a little bit. But I'm going to do the other way. This is the outside. I don't want to have any screws here. I want to keep that clean. So we're going to go back to the inside. And you'll see I've intentionally made it so that there's a gap. And the reason being, when I put my screws in here and it sucks it up, it's actually going to push it down like this to where I want it flush, and I'm going to stop. And that's what your gable is going to look like. That's your gable beam. It's going to look just like that, only not sticking up in the back because it'll be up, not rested. And then just like before, we're going to go from here. We're going to go up to 98.5. Right here, right? So that we made our mark at 98.5. Okay. And now because it's a gable molding, there's actually only going to be one of these guys. But again, this is my spot right here. This guy's going to go in right here, flush to 98.5. We're going to screw it in just like we did the other ones. And that's going to hold it all together as well. And then after that's on, the only other piece that's left to do, again, is your step up. These are your step ups. Got to still do this on all the beams. And you can take one of your little blocks here, or your 3.5 inch, make your space. Now this little block right here is actually, we're going to show you what that is here in a minute, but we're just borrowing it for a moment. You can use your tape measure and measure down 3.5 inches if you want, or you can cheat and use one of these little blocks. Again, screwing it down, and then that's how you have your cable moldings. So you got to envision the other part being there, but that's how it goes on. All right, now that our beam is all glued together, we're going to take our step up. This is the top of the beam. So you want to pick whatever looks the nicest and make that your bottom. So if your seam comes together down there and one side looks better than the other, whichever one looks the best, make that the bottom of the beam so that the top of the beam is not going to be seen. Okay, this is our step up. What we're going to do here is we're going to set it in place. We need it to sit 3.5 inches back. So we're going to take our little beam stop right here. We're going to borrow it for a moment. And we're going to just flush this out. Come up closer and see. We're going to flush this out right here. And then we're going to butt this right up to it. Now that it's there, we're going to screw it in all the way down, okay? Now that that's screwed in, the next step is your truss block. Now it's important you note how the angle goes. The angle actually goes in, so if you come look right up over it, it needs to look like this. Now, we're going to start here. We're going to go down to 16 inches on the inside, just like right there. You can see how that lines up. Right there at that 16 mark on the inside. And then we're just going to screw that into the 2 pre-drilled holes. Those stay in place. Boom, we're done. Next, we're going to come from the bottom of the beam, and we're going to go to the top side, and we're going to go to 98.5. Now you can do this with your tape measure. I like to make a mark. Okay, so I'm going to take this here and make a little mark at 98.5. That's my mark. Now I know where it is. That's where this piece comes into play. This guy here is going to be where all of our cross bracing is connected. So this comes on, and then we're going to flush this end here up. Let's pretend like our single wasn't on there. You can see it's nice and flush right here. And we're going to stop it right here at this little mark that I made. So if you come this way a little bit with it, my little mark's right there. That's where it's going to sit. And we're just going to make sure it's flat. We're going to screw this thing in all the way down. Again, you can see it's crossing over this space here. So it's another brace for this joint. And then when we get up here to the top one, you'll see this piece here. This is going to be line up flush. That'll line up flush. This piece that sticks out with our step up. And this is what gets you all the pieces you need so that it's really simple to put your roof on. But this is how the beam comes together. And 2 of the beams are your gable beams, which are these ones, and then the ones in the middle are your truss beams. So depending on how wide your greenhouse is, you might have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of these. And this assembly you see right here, we're going to flip this over and do this piece here, this exact piece on the other side as well for all of the center, or what we call truss beams. And that's how this comes together. So it'll look just like you see it right now, but with this on both sides. And that's how you've assembled the beam. And you can do all this the night before your setup. We have to send these beams split so they'll actually go on the pallets. It's the only reason we send them this way. But we've tested them. They're really, really strong. And there you go. That's how you do it. All right, the truss beam. Now this is very important when we're doing the truss beam because this seam needs to be very tight. You can see we intentionally made sure not to get stain on all this. The glue will still work with the stain, but we want to make sure to get a good connection in the middle where there is no stain to make a nice good bond. I'm not actually going to glue these today, but I'm going to show you how I would glue them. So this is the wood glue. What we want to do is we want to get a nice thick coat all over the sides, and then I like to take my finger and just make sure it's kind of covered all over. So you're going to spread it out, and it should just kind of have like a film effect to it. One thing that's really important that you bring with you when you do this, get yourself a bucket with a wet rag, because when we screw this down and the glue goes in, it's going to seep out in some spots. And after that happens, you want to take a really nice, very wet rag and get all that off, because otherwise it'll dry on the edges and it'll kind of affect the way that the stain looks. So when it comes to your house, you're going to glue it really good. Again, nice full, thick glue, make it nice and flat. We're going to take your 2 pieces and they're going to go on top of each other. Now you'll notice they're pre-drilled. There should be 6 pre-drill spots on one side and 7 on the other. And then if you go down to the end and you look down before we start screwing this in, and you're walking down and they kind of look down the edge this way, and you want to get down and you want to see to make sure it's nice and straight. You don't want to look like that, okay? You want to make sure it looks nice and straight, nice and clean. And the way you should know that's going to work is when you get up to a close-up right here, you'll see this line is nice and even all the way across. Now, these are all rough stock, so they're not going to be perfectly flush. That's perfectly okay. We expect that. It's not going to cause you a problem for construction. Anyways, nice. You want to get a nice bunch of glue in there. You really can't over glue it. Feel down both sides. Make sure it's even. You'll notice if it's a big gap on this side and sticking out on this side, that means it's not flat. And then you're going to screw it in to all the pre-drilled spots. And this one's kind of, normally we get these a little more consistent, but we want to make sure they're not going to hit the other side. So we'll screw all of those down, okay, nice and tight. When this goes in, I want to see it countersink. I don't want to see it flat. It should sink down about a 1/16 of an inch. I don't want it to stick out. So make sure you hammer those down nice and tight. Okay, after that side's done, you're just going to flip your whole unit over. Keeping in mind that at this point it would have been it would have already been screwed down. That's not going to fall apart like it is on me right now. And then again, same thing on this side. Just screw all those down in the pre-drilled spots. They're set up right now so that they won't run into each other. That's why they look kind of awkward, but basically it makes a Z the opposite way on the other side. So those will get all screwed down. After those are screwed down, everything's nice and tight. Take your wet rag, really wet, you can't get it too wet, and just scrub all these areas to make sure no glue is sitting on there. And you can wipe it down 15 times. You're not going to hurt it. The glue is waterproof. When it dries, the water won't be an issue. After that's all done, we'll kind of try to leave it in place or somewhere close. We don't want to move it around a whole bunch until after that glue's had a chance to dry. And I would give that glue about 2 hours before you try to move the beam around very much. And I would recommend doing this the night before you install the greenhouse. Give these a full 24 hours to cure, and then to make them strong. Now this is only step 1 of this process. Step 2 of this process is we're going to use what we call our truss stops. And so that video is coming next, but I'll show you really quick. We have our this solid 2x4. There's no angles cut in it, right? No angles. This is what we call, it's our block up. And so you're going to see that in just a moment. In the next video, you're also going to see how these truss stops work in the next video. These will also serve as an additional support on this beam as it goes together. So you're actually going to do this pretty much right away. All right, thanks.